Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Sylbourne Show. Coming up today, we are joined by a lawyer who practices both here in the UK and in Jamaica and is the founder of the Caribbean Day Movement International. That's all coming up on the show. Welcome to the Sylbourne Show. Joining us today, we have Hamilton Daley. He has held an illustrious career as a lawyer, both in the UK and in Jamaica, and is the founder of the Caribbean Day Movement International. But before I go there, I want to talk about the EU referendum and the whole drive for the UK to Brexit out of the EU. Of course, you know by now that the result is that they're out. Now, at the same time, in the Caribbean, we have CARICOM. Someone would say it's somewhat similar to the EU, whereby it is a bloc. The EU is a bloc. Now, today, I'm going to actually speak to Hamilton at some point about the implications about CARICOM with the EU, and also, is there any way or any similarities? Can Jamaica or one of the Caribbean country Brexit CARICOM as well as how the UK Brexit the EU? And today, ladies and gentlemen, as I said before, we are joined by Hamilton Daley. Hamilton, how are you doing, sir?
I'm fine, thank you, Sylbourne.
Thank you for joining us. I've been wanting to speak to you for a while since the whole EU referendum, because there's a similarity, because your organization is wanting to have a Caribbean Day.
That's right.
And I think about CARICOM, and I think about the EU. Of course, there may not be links, but there are some similarities which we'll touch on later. Tell us a little bit about Caribbean Day Movement International, its forging principles, and what's the aim of the movement?
The Caribbean Day Movement International is a social media-based movement which was intending, and the objective of it is to realize a Caribbean Day internationally across the Caribbean region, in the US, for people of Caribbean heritage, in Canada and in the UK.
Yes.
The principle of it is similar to a St. Patrick's Day for the Irish community or a Thanksgiving Day for American community. The Caribbean community don't have a day,
yes,
whereas other ethnic and religious groups do, and the social media network allows this now for you to communicate globally to spread this type of message that you wouldn't have been able to do before.
So when you made the comparison there with Ireland,
yes,
the Irish St. Patrick's Day,
yes,
and also July the 4th, we're talking about two separate countries. One
yes,
is Ireland and one is America.
Correct.
But Caribbean Day comprises of many different Caribbean countries. You're bringing them together. That's your dream.
That's the dream. And it's correct to say St. Patrick's Day originates from Ireland,
yes,
but St. Patrick's Day is celebrated by Irish people everywhere. And I recall an experience I had in 2007 when I was in Jamaica, and I met a family who was there for 2007 Cricket World Cup.
Yes. And
there were three brothers, and they had three sons at different ages. One was from Ireland, one was from US, and one was from Canada. And they, on the 19th of March, I think it was in 2007, they had a great party. They celebrated St. Patrick's Day in Jamaica,
yes,
and I witnessed that. And I thought the families of these men and boys, wherever they are, in Canada and the US and Ireland, are celebrating St. Patrick's Day as well. And that was a fantastic unifying concept.
But also at the same time, and I recognize where you're coming from with that, whereby they came together, but would you say that Caribbean countries, i.e. Jamaica, 1962 was Independence Day?
Yes.
Would you consider Independence Day as, if Jamaica was supposed to have a day, would it be a diaspora day or a Independence Day? I mean, St. Lucia, the Caribbean countries, when they got independence, would you call that the day?
It's the day to mark the independence of that country.
Yes.
It's not the day to mark, and it's not an issue of heritage, which is what Caribbean Day is about.
Yes,
Caribbean Day is about heritage.
Yes.
It's about what our children's children can be
Yes.
when they're born overseas. Because if you're not born in Jamaica, it's a difficult stretch to say you're a Jamaican.
Yes.
So what
Okay.
heritage do we leave for our children? Because what used to be important is that in the Windrush era, which is when the mass immigration started
Yes.
to the UK, for instance, there was the parents of those that generation said the most important thing is that my child must have a good education.
Yes.
Then they'll be on their way. But at this generation, we have to not only educate our child by sending them to schools, but we also have to give them heritage. It's our responsibility to pass down heritage.
Yes.
So that when we get onto the third, fourth, fifth, sixth generation, distance does not make them distance from their heritage, from where they begin.
So the Caribbean Day is a way to sort of bridge that gap, is that what you're saying? But what would you say then are the common issues within Caribbean countries at large facing in the modern day, and how do you see us or see this movement overcoming and setting the Caribbean as a contender on the world stage in terms of economics? And why I say that is because to have a Caribbean Day, one would say there must be a Caribbean bloc, a Caribbean movement, a Caribbean strong economic factor, i.e. CARICOM. I'm just putting that out there. Would you say that?
To have a Caribbean Day doesn't require a CARICOM. We would like CARICOM to be leading on this issue.
Yes.
And CARICOM have been invited to lead on this issue.
Right.
But it's similar to something like Black Friday, the shopping phenomenon, which happens because people want it. Now, there is 6 million people in the English-speaking Caribbean.
Yes.
And there's at least 6 million outside living in the US, and their children, and this goes on forever. It's generations infinitum saying we have a heritage. We have a heritage in the Caribbean.
Yes.
And it was Marcus Garvey who said, a people who without knowing their history and their origin and their heritage is like a tree without roots. And if we do not give this to our children, not just the education. The education was the past generation. This generation, we give them the education and we give them the heritage.
Yes.
And this is an opportunity to do that.
So therefore, how are then you're forging the way in making this happen? What has been the support? How has been the support? You said something which I picked up on. You would like CARICOM to lead the way. Is there a blockage or there are obstacles? Is there anything that we can do to push the agenda?
Well, just being here on this show is doing something, and we thank you for the exposure and the opportunity to speak to so many people of Caribbean heritage now today. Caribbean has been slow to respond to our communication to them, and CARICOM would seem to be a talking shop for governments, between governments, and a movement like ours who will gather pace because it's about awareness. The more people know about Caribbean Day, the more people agree with it. And they say, well, yes, we haven't got anything. And what would it mean culturally? Where are we passing on our heritage? Because it's our responsibility to pass on, not just education, because the children will not learn about their heritage. That's not the school's responsibility, that's the parents' responsibility.
You know, that is something I see a lot of times when I see persons having a go at the educational system in the UK for not teaching black history.
Right.
And I always say that personally, I think we have a responsibility to teach black history to our children.
Yes.
And I'm not saying that the educational system should not contribute, but primarily, I believe that we have that fundamental responsibility. So I'm agreeing with you at that point there, when you say about we need to teach our children the history and the legacies of the Caribbean.
And absolutely, and the opportunity to do this, I mean, it doesn't take creating classes for your child and so come here, I want to tell you something about, you know, where your grandparents come from. They might not be interested. But if you make it exciting, you make it engaging, and you make it an opportunity where people can join in with church services on the day or fairs or carnivals or whatever they wish to do on a Caribbean Day. But to have nothing that recognizes the journey of the Caribbean, to have no recognition in the world.
I can see where you're coming from, and I hope people can see, because in the UK here, for argument's sake, I'm sure there are many African days, if anything. Mm-hmm. But in light of what is happening now, especially in the UK, with a lack of sometimes identity mm-hmm. of black people from the Caribbean, it would be good for something like a Caribbean Day to sort of galvanize us, pull us together, playing cricket, having a special occasion. Are you going to have an event soon? Is there an event coming up?
The movement is creating the opportunity right. for commerce.
Yes.
So if you have a day which will, like a Valentine's Day, the global economy for Valentine's Day is 30 billion. The global economy for Christmas Day is 400 billion.
Wow. Global
economy for Black Friday is 51 billion. That only started in 2009. Yes. So if we had a Caribbean Day which attracted commerce and economics to the Caribbean,
yes.
it would open opportunities to engage in commerce, and that's it. It creates opportunities. So, but we have to have the day first, and we have to have the community at least knowing about it, because yes. we've not had any pushback on this.
Yes.
If people know about it, they will join in. They will yes. say, I mean, because it's our response. This generation has to now do something to uplift the next yes, generation. Yes.
Ladies and gentlemen, please let me hear your views. Should there be a Caribbean Day, and why a Caribbean Day? What are your views? Please subscribe and make an what should I say? Type something below. You know where to type it, right? The European Union, sometime one of the criticisms is that it's unelected bureaucrats who are actually telling the British people what to do. So they're a bit peed off, and it's the reason why 70 million voted out. Now, in the Caribbean, with CARICOM, I think I read one country or whatever was talking about Brexiting the CARICOM. Yeah. Would you see any similarities in the structure of CARICOM and the European Union?
Well, there is similarity in the structure, because if anything, CARICOM closely copied what the European Union...
Unelected bureaucrats as well?
Well, no, not an elected bureaucrat, because CARICOM doesn't have the executive authority
yes.
that the EU has. The EU made laws, and
yes,
in Britain they found, well, what's this now? We can't, we have to have bananas yes. at a certain length. In CARICOM, they're not very effective at talking to people.
Yes.
They talk between themselves at the top, and they do achieve things.
They do achieve things?
They do achieve things.
We may get in their name in the minutes?
No way.
I'm just asking.
Well, it might feel that way. Absolutely, it will feel that way. And because they are not elected either, CARICOM is not an elected organization yes. like EU, but unlike the EU, they don't have any executive authority. So right. you don't get anything coming down from CARICOM saying, telling us what to do. So that they almost feel ineffectual to the ordinary man on the street, in whether it's been Kingston or Kingstown or Rousset or the other places, Bridgetown.
So tell me then, do you see then the whole talk and the whole discussion about Caribbean countries want to leave CARICOM? That's really a fallacy to a certain extent. It's because really and truly they're not tied to CARICOM.
No, they're not. There is a treaty. There's a treaty, Sharagramus. There is a treaty. So they are tied in an agreement, as it were.
Freedom of movement.
Freedom of movement, Caribbean single market economy.
But some of it is not happening because, of course, people are getting like
it is not perfect. It is not perfect. But it is better than nothing.
Yes.
I'd suggest that it would be an undesirable situation to have no CARICOM.
Right. Now tell us now, how can we then push the Caribbean Day then? What's a key word that you want to share with the viewers about the impact of Caribbean Day? What message would you like to share?
We started from a situation in particularly black history or African Caribbean history, put it that way, which where the most important thing back in the days 200 years ago was just to stay alive. Then we evolved to a situation where the most important thing was to get freed.
Yes.
And then when you got freed, the most important thing was to have access to education.
I was going to say to stay free.
To stay free. and access to education, access to education for our children and all that. So by the time you get to the 60s,
yes,
parents from the Caribbean, what the most important thing, freedom plus education, then my children will go on to something better than I could have ever achieved.
yes.
But now we're in this generation, and we have got some responsibility. We can't just be taking. Now we have to lift up the next generation.
Yes.
And how we do this, we ensure the education, but we say there's some history to how we got here. And it's not on the curriculum. As you know, you can learn about Eid in Britain, you can learn about Diwali, you can learn about St. Patrick's. No Caribbean Day, nothing about how the Caribbean community enriched Britain, was there for the First World War, with the West Indian Regiment, was there for the Second World War, came back to build Britain after it was bombed.
Yes.
No recognition of the 1st of August, which, by the way, is the British Parliament's pronunciation of emancipation in 1834. Nothing in 200 years.
Right.
So no one's going to give us this. We're going to have to own it. And when we own it, it'll have cultural significance. It'll have significance to the heritage, what our children identify themselves as. Not just we'll take them back to the Caribbean so that they know where they're coming from, or they know where their granny comes from. That's not good enough. We've got more responsibilities now. Our turn. It's got economic impact. What a Caribbean Day will attract commerce to the Caribbean by Caribbean people here saying, well, you know what, we're going to have a Caribbean meal. Can't have a Caribbean meal without Grenada spices.
Yes.
Can't have a Caribbean meal. The other nationalities and races will try out a Caribbean dish.
Do you find then the struggle then between the different Caribbean islands and working together?
I'm glad you asked that question. And I traveled on a tour last month and with my team, my Caribbean team, and we went through Antigua, we went to St. Kitts, St. Lucia, St. Vincent, Grenada, Dominica. I think I've got all of them there.
Yes.
And I spoke to someone, it was in Grenada, and they said to me, it was one of the directors of, I shouldn't identify, but they said to me, there is a thing in the Caribbean, almost like a plantation mentality.
Yes.
And the weirdest thing about that concept is that when the slave ships dropped off slaves on the islands as part of the trade, lots of families were split up along the way.
Right.
And there are races in the Caribbean, on the islands, who, when they go to New York, they're not identified as being from any plantation because they look a certain way.
Yes.
And if you go to Trinidad and they look a certain way, and they go to any other country, they're not specifically says, well, that's all I am. So it's something that our people, when I say that, African people of the African Caribbean origin, needs to really widen their minds. So.
Okay, so therefore, I can see clearly where you're going, and there's a clear need for the identity factor as well. The Commonwealth plays a role, though, as well. Is there some liaison with the Commonwealth Secretariat?
The Commonwealth includes, of course, other countries like Canada and a lot of African countries.
But they got the arms to the Caribbean side of the Commonwealth at the same time. There
is part of the Cameroon. There's there's CARICOM. There's the Association of Caribbean States, which include countries that are along the Caribbean basin, like even including Mexico in that. There are other organizations which will touch on the Caribbean and not just CARICOM. CARICOM represents 15 states, but they are an encompassing organization where I would hope you send a letter to CARICOM, they should at least filter out so the others know about it. So in that way, otherwise you have to write 15 letters.
Okay, fantastic. Well, listen, Hamilton Daley, I want to thank you so much for coming on the show, and thanks for that. And I'm sure this is whetting the appetite of many people as to what Caribbean Day is about, because I do recall the first time I started seeing all these messages, and it has built up ever since. But before we go, give me a word or a motivational word that you would like to share. I always ask guests some inspirational word for the viewers.
This is the Caribbean Day mantra.
Yes.
Everyone, everywhere, one day, 1st of August, is Caribbean Day.
So repeat again.
Everyone, everywhere, one day, 1st of August is Caribbean Day.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, 1st of August is Caribbean Day. Sir Hamilton Daley, thank you so much for joining the show. And ladies and gentlemen, to find out more about Hamilton Daley and Caribbean Day Movement International, visit our website at sylbourne.com. Thank you to our viewers for joining us, and remember to share, like and subscribe our YouTube channel, and always comment on Sylbourne TV, as well as our other social media platforms on Facebook, Instagram and Twitter. Thank you for watching, and see you next time on The Sylbourne Show. Hi, thanks for watching our video. If you like what you see, please subscribe to my YouTube channel and share and like, and don't forget to comment, but first subscribe.
Hello, this is Hamilton Daley of Caribbean Day Movement International. I've just been on the Sylbourne Show. Please like and subscribe. He's a true friend of Caribbean Day. Thank you.
Good. Thank you for joining us, Hamilton.
Thank you.
Good, good. Welcome to the show. I can't do it again, James. All right, okay, yeah.